From the four corners of Beverly Hills, I'm Max Schwartz. This is Let's Talk Politics and starts right now. Welcome back, everybody, to our second season. It's sure to be our best season yet. It is an election year. I will have all your up-to-date election coverage right here on Let's Talk Politics. Also, I want to sincerely apologize for not having our last show with Honorable Mike Fuhrer on the air yet. And I would like to thank our crew. Without them, this show would not be entirely possible. Today I am here with the man that once again brings you this, the Beverly Hills political analyst in himself, to recap all the news of the summer, Mr. Josh Gross.
Max, it's a pleasure to be back on Let's Talk Politics.
Thank you. I'm happy to have you. Let's start then. Well, last time we discussed a lot about the Board of Education, and you said that you wanted a superintendent that knows the values and knows the way of the Beverly Hills, and you thought the board would do great things, and they did. They brought back Mr. Dick Douglas, a former teacher in the Beverly Hills Unified School District. So what goals do you think this year he has, and what do you think this year the board and him will be focusing on? Well,
first of all, Dick Douglas is a perfect choice for superintendent. And actually, over 2 years ago, in October 2008, we wrote an editorial where we mentioned Dick Douglas as a possible superintendent. Mm-hmm. And at that time, he was still in Montecito, of which he's now retired from. So Dick was a perfect choice. And I also want to give a shout out to the new principals who were phenomenal, including Carter Pasinger here at the high school. It's a great choice. You really sense a whole new mood in the district now that you didn't have this time last year. So that's first. In terms of what the goals agenda is, I think now that they have the right people in place in a lot of administrative selections, the goals are going to be basically now to move the ball forward. And, you can ask some additional questions on that, but they've got a lot of things coming up.
Yeah, and especially to keep the administrations that the teachers call as the golden age now, because we have all these teachers are once again happy to be teaching in the district. They want to stay here. We have administrators that were former teachers that went through the district itself, Carter Pasinger, an alumni from Beverly Hills High School, so he knows the way this high school used to be and the way it needs to be to continue.
Correct.
Now, you said to get the ball rolling. What do you mean? I know you're talking about making sure this district stays afloat with basic aid, making sure the less fraud in the district, of course, increasing classroom funding and everything else. So what exactly were you talking about?
Well, all of the above. First of all, basic aid is a new situation that we're not used to because, as you know, this is the first time now we're not paid per student as it was historically. So as it turns out, Superintendent Douglas is an expert on basic aid because his previous district in Montecito is basic aid. So that's point one. Point two is there's some major construction issues facing the district. Okay, we passed a large bond in late 2008, which they really have yet to start spending. The district's been caught up in some lawsuits and some other issues, so that'll have to get resolved. And then third of all, there's curriculum issues, and of course, you have a new schedule here at the high school, things like that, that they're going to have to work through. So again, it's a busy agenda, but I got to tell you, I think this board is doing phenomenal things, and I think as compared to the previous board, things have only gotten better and better.
I agree. Like we said, the morale is better in the district. Things seem to be organized now and prioritized better. Of course, we have Miss Irene Stern back at Beverly Vista, and they're going to. And of course, we need to know that the board needs to spend some time looking for a very good replacement because we must note she is an interim, which we were very lucky to get her.
Right.
But how do you think the board needs to go about finding a permanent?
Well, look, like I say, everything's working well for now. Let's just let the school year play out as it does, and I think we just wait and see how some of these selections work out. But so far, I think things are on the right track, definitely.
I agree. I like the way this district's looking. We've had cleaner schools, as Honorable Korbutov has gone about doing. We have curriculum has improved. We still have little kinks in the bell schedule, but that will get worked out. Teachers are happy to be back. And the next thing we got to do is we got to make sure that the funding continues from the state.
Right.
Now, going back, and one big debate in the city of Beverly Hills this summer, and has been on the school board also, has been with the subway that is going through the Purple Line. And Mr. Ken Goldman was actually in the LA Times this morning. So on that note, how do you feel about the subway, and how do you think that will impact the residents of Beverly Hills?
Well, first of all, that's a great question because Ken's shown some real tremendous leadership on this. By the way, Ken's also a graduate of the high school, and his kids went here too. Clearly, we're for the northern alignment. We don't want any subway going underneath the high school. And as you know, one of the plans that's on the table right now is it would go literally under the high school in an attempt to go to the southern part of Century City.
Or in the middle.
Right.
Or in the middle.
Well, yeah, but what's behind that is developers' interest in having a subway station in their building, basically, or adjacent to their building. We're for the northern alignment, which is a lot safer. And I don't personally believe that the northern alignment is going to cost ridership, which is their concern. In other words,
Wilshire or Santa Monica?
No, well, it's Santa Monica, but it's more northern than the other route. Basically.
And the big concern that they had was it would stop more at the end of Century City.
Correct, and their concern was, okay, does that mean, like, for example, people in the Twin Towers won't take the subway? Well, I don't believe that. I think they will. They just have to walk an extra block. I mean, if you've been to Washington D.C. or New York, you know that people will easily walk several blocks to a metro station or a subway station. It's not a big deal. So look, what's behind that is developers greed, and Ken's shown some real leadership here in terms of really standing up to that.
I like what he has had to say about doing what's safer for the children. As if you did not watch the school board meeting during the summer in which it was talked about, every person that went up there expressed their unhappiness with it going under the high school, and especially we don't want an episode of what just happened in San Bruno.
Absolutely. Now, but one point on that too, Max. It also impacts any construction plans we have here for the high school, because if we want, for example, we want to put in subterranean underground parking, we'll only be able to go down so far because you'll hit the subway if you keep going down. So that's another reason. And you know, in terms of students and some of your peers who are following this, what you should really take note of is this is a great example of an issue that nobody was covering until Ken started talking about it. Ken really put it on the agenda, made the school board and the city council much more aware of it than they were before. And students and others can really make a difference here because the MTA responds to public pressure, okay? And if you guys are very vocal about saying you don't want tunneling in the high school, you don't want it here, they're going to be much more receptive to that than if you're just apathetic and you don't get involved. So it's a really good lesson for the students on civic activism.
And it would also be specifically with noise. And that could also bring down grades and concentration and disrupt classrooms, which we don't also want, because then that would be lessening from the learning environment here at the high school, which the board members strictly do not want. Although I don't believe they for sure have 100% say. They can put their input, but I don't believe they have a 100% say. Am I correct?
Well, I mean, here's the problem. The decision is made by the MTA. Okay, now they could sue or they could try to cause problems, but the fact is the MTA makes the decision. So we need to make sure our voices are heard. You're going to be reading a lot about that in this week's issue, but I'll save that for this week's issue.
And especially thanks to Ken Goldman, he has gotten the public together and he has put the public opinion out there for the MTA. If you didn't see it in the LA Times, I'm sure it's online. You can go look. He's a great person to talk to because he knows all about this issue. He's been the person in Beverly Hills that is the liaison basically to the MTA, and he is also the president of one of the homeowners,
Southwest Homeowners,
Southwest Homeowners Association. Going back to the Board of Education and the City Council, many things have happened both in the City Council and in the Board of Education this summer. Now, what do you think were the key points that came up this summer?
Well, I mean, a lot of things. First of all, in terms of City Council and where the City Council is going, we're approaching an election coming up in March of 2011. So there's starting to be some handicapping in terms of candidates that might run. Planning Commissioner Lily Bosse, of course, is going to run, after whom the Bosse Family Library is named. So she's going to be a real strong candidate.
And the KBEV.
And the KBEV, right, that's true too. How could I forget? Now there's 2 seats open though. So there's 2 incumbents up, Jimmy Delshed and Nancy Krasny. Nancy Krasny has indicated she's going to run. Jimmy Delshed has not indicated what his plans are yet. So that'll be interesting to see. And then obviously you'll have some other candidates that are going to come forward. So I think, you know, that's really one of the most interesting issues. The second really big issue of the summer, which happened right at the tail end of the summer, was the controversy over this 90210 event and giving the Kardashians an honorary key to the city.
And also the fact that they weren't the real replica key to the city.
Right.
They were the special 90210. And Matt and Honorable Mirish, if you don't know, wanted to create a special meeting for that, and he was opposed 4-1.
Well, right, but it wasn't just that. A number of former mayors came out against it too, who felt that it was not an appropriate use of the city's key. Now, Mayor Delshed responded that it wasn't the key, it was an honorary key, but you know, you can argue these things both ways. Bottom line is that got a lot of national media coverage. It was on Perez Hilton, it was on E, it was all over the news because of the visibility of the Kardashians.
And also it's Beverly Hills.
Right, it's Beverly Hills. Of course, there's a bigger picture issue as to whether or not an event such as this is something the City Council should be focusing on. Is it a good source of city resources? Yes, it was paid for by sponsors, but there was a lot of staff time that went into planning this event, which essentially was a rock concert with Natasha Bedingfield and all of this. You know, my personal opinion is it's a nice civic event, but I'm not sure it's the best use of city resources.
And from what I do know, though, it did make money.
We'll find out.
We'll find out because the numbers have yet to come out, and I have been told by several people that once the numbers do come out, they will be published immediately.
I'm
hope
sure
your paper will do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on now, as many of the Let's Talk Politics viewers know, it's campaign 2010. And what do you think will be the key points in the election year? As you said, Nancy Krasny may run again. Lily Bosse is for sure running. Noah Fury said he's not running now.
Yeah, well, hold on. Well, Noah, another planning commissioner, was a candidate, but he just last Thursday announced, and it's in actually this week's paper, right, in that paper right there, that he's not running. So that's kind of shook up the race a little bit. You might see another member of the planning commission run. You might see some other commissioners run. I mean, look, the city council election is always very fluid right up until the last minute. There's always candidates that come forward. And I remember, I mean, you mentioned John Mirisch a second ago, Councilman John Mirisch. He was a come-from-behind candidate in 2009. A lot of people didn't think he was going to win. He wasn't very well known. He had just recently moved back after living for over 20 years in Sweden. I mean, he grew up in Beverly Hills, but he only recently moved back. And I can remember a lot